The Australian Curriculum Studies Association would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and the waterways from where we are all meeting today. We pay our respects to the elders past and present, and we extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We value the contributions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to education and their continued support of the teaching and learning of all Australians. We recognise that for thousands of years, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been the first teachers, and that we are committed to continue our learning alongside them. Welcome everyone back to our next series, which is actually our In Conversation series, where we are talking about conversations with those who are attending our conference. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce today Shyam Drury, who is a lecturer in primary mathematics teaching at the University of Notre here in Fremantle. He loves helping students develop a deeper understanding of the mathematics content and effective teaching of it. This involves translating research into practical direct experience through explanation, modelling, and participatory examples. Focuses are explicit teaching with a CRA approach, but games and challenging tasks, and creating a safe, enjoyable, and inclusive experience of mathematics. And with new curriculums happening in the mathematics space, especially here in WA, it's an exciting time, which I think we're all very passionate to be involved in. So welcome, Shyam.
Thank you, and pleasure to be here.
Shyam, you're going to talk us through your presentation, which is something that is very, very interesting because I think, especially as an adult now, having those conversations with other adults, a lot of it, when you talk about maths, is hugely about anxiety in most cases. It's also all the common phrase, I did rubbish at maths, I'm no good at maths. So this is a real particular area of concern and might really change how we approach mathematics teaching for the future.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So I'll let you go with it, and I'll just interject at times if I were to think about what maybe some of our listeners would be interested in. So yeah, happy to hand over the reins.
All right. So what I'm presenting on is my research from my in-progress PhD project. So it's just in the early analysis phase. Some of my conclusions might change as I analyze a bit deeper, but I do have some first insights that I can share based on what I've found. So the background for the research, where it comes from. So you'll know, Anna, but our listeners won't, that I previously worked for Scitech in professional learning and developed a program called Lighthouse Maths, where I was training teachers in teaching through problem solving, teaching mathematics through problem solving. And that was, the project involved, apart from the problem solving aspect, it involved really deep investigation of the mathematics with an expert. So the teacher participants had coaches who were trained, who would spend a lot of time over many cycles helping them develop lesson plans, observing their lessons, doing feedback with them. So getting really intensive support. And we'd have these sharing sessions at the end of the year, each year when the participants graduated. And it was often one of the things that moved me the most when they'll talk about how much their relationship with mathematics and teaching mathematics had changed. Some of them came in to the program specifically because they were anxious about teaching mathematics, which was quite a brave thing to do. And there were these, so I'd seen these massive transformations and how much a difference it made for them and for their students. I also talked to, when I was looking at what to do my PhD on, I just talked to some teachers, and this was one of the things that came up. They were like, anxiety around teaching mathematics is really big. So that's where the interest in the research for me came from.
And that's very important in the sense that it's very much, you have that focus on the professional learning aspect of identifying the maths anxiety within those who are teaching it. That was that focus in that part, wasn't it? It wasn't about the children's anxiety, it was generally about those who are teaching it and their anxiety.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's a good point. Yeah. So there is far more existing research on maths anxiety among students.
Yes.
And And there is a fair bit of the research on maths anxiety in teachers as well, and
Yeah.
obviously has lots of terrible effects. It influences students' performance. There's research that suggests that maths and teachers pass on their maths anxiety to their students. There's just all the attendant horrible feelings of being anxious. It causes teachers to be less more likely to leave the profession. So all of these kind of things is clearly an issue that is worth addressing. Now, one of the things that the starting points of my research was to identify that, to put the focus of my research on mathematics teaching anxiety. So there's research on maths anxiety in students, there's research on maths anxiety in teachers.
Yes.
It's very little research there, but specifically on the anxiety around teaching mathematics.
Right.
And as I was doing my literature review, I found that there's this obviously related. Often teachers' anxiety about teaching is rooted in their own anxiety of mathematics that started in their learning experience, but they're not necessarily the same thing. That can be distinguished. Some teachers are anxious about mathematics, but use that as a source of empathy towards their own students' anxiety, which modifies their own anxiety about teaching mathematics. Some teachers might not really anxious about teaching mathematics. They might have had an okay experience and feel very generally confident in their content knowledge, but they feel anxious about the teaching of it because they're not sure about how to do their students justice. So there's a difference there, and I wanted to target that.
And I guess that's really important when we think of the context of a lot of out of field teachers, especially in rural and remote areas where, just because you're a scientist must mean that you're able to teach maths or whatever it is. So you might be a competent mathematician in yourself, but the ability then to, be able to teach it to someone else might be something, and it might be something you just take for granted because you've used mathematics in another profession, but then bringing it into a classroom, I suppose, would be very difficult. And similarly with primary, even probably more so.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the whole kind of thing about pedagogical content knowledge, or talk about in mathematics, mathematical knowledge for teachers. The idea that you have to know mathematics in a different way to be able to teach it than you do to be able to do it. To do mathematics, you don't really need to know about arrays and the bar model and stuff like that, but you need those to teach a student to develop a concept and how to use mathematics flexibly. So the existing research is focused mostly on maths anxiety rather than maths teaching anxiety, and it's also focused. The research that I did find tended to focus on pre-service teachers because it's convenient if you're a researcher to work with. If you're in a university, you've got a few hundred students that you can take as participants. So, so I want, because I come from professional learning, I was interested in how it happens out in the field when people are teaching, how they get over their anxiety. And the other thing was that most of the research tended to be confirmatory. So it was like interventions, so things like teach teachers to use concrete materials in their teaching, or teach them like a problem solving approach or something like that, or how to teach and understand mathematics more conceptually, and then they found that their anxiety was less. So whenever you do a study like that, there's some assumption. And you can only find out whether it's true or not. So I really wanted to know to take an exploratory approach instead, and see if I just asked them what happened. So the research design was for me to find teachers who had overcome their maths teaching anxiety, in-service teachers, and ask them how it happened.
Excellent. On that journey, because what you've made that thing about pre-service teachers, it's quite difficult because there's so many variables in that. I know just a lot of people who are listening in the terms of research, but when you look at something like a pre-service teacher, maths anxiety will be part of a multiple level of anxiety with many things. Maths will be very much probably a strong point, but it does also not take into consideration the other factors that might be contributing to someone's anxiety in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, even with in-service teachers as well, anxiety is something that often has multiple sources.
Yes.
So it's mixed together. You know, we took this as a focus, and that's what we talked about. But it was certainly there in some of the interviews that there are other related factors influencing their anxiety. So I made a flyer, sent it out. I got across Australia, I got 11 participants, and so even though it's a fairly small sample, but it's a qualitative research, so it was enough for the methodology that I'm using. But I was fortunate to get a fairly good cross section within that sample. So you can see there were 3 males and 8 females, which is pretty representative of the primary teacher population. I got participants from government, Catholic, and independent schools. They were participants varied across teaching year 1 to 6. They aged from 26 to 57, and about half and half in metropolitan and regional remote. And the thing I didn't put on here is that they're in 4 states, the participants. So I got them from WA, Tasmania, Victoria, and New South Wales. So we interviewed them. I interviewed them online through Teams, just as we're using now. Transcribed the interviews, and then sent it back to the participants to check that they were happy with how I transcribed it. And then the research itself, I used a methodology called phenomenography, which looks at the different ways that people experience a phenomenon. And categorizes them according to more expanded levels of awareness. So you'll see that in my my results. I show you what I've got as my early categories. But like example, that Ferenc Martin, who came up with this approach, one of his early examples was like early children, their experience of learning. Some of the categories were experiencing learning as being able to do something. That was the first category. And then there was as knowing something, which was a more expanded. It's aware of more things than just being able to do something. And then being able to understand something. It's like the third broader category. There's another, that I intend to do narrative analysis as well, but I haven't had that. So we can leave it.
Coming up.
The time for that yet. Okay, so after I interviewed the 11, transcribed them, started doing my analysis, these were the 4 categories that I found, the ways that they experienced overcoming their anxiety around teaching mathematics. Reducing uncertainty as an exchange of knowledge, embracing uncertainty, and as a transformation of belief. So this goes through the number 1 is the least expansive category. So they get more expansive as you go up the numbers. So in reducing uncertainty, just move to the next slide because I've got a detailed overview. So in reducing uncertainty, this is teachers it's like the panic of stepping into a room and you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You don't know the mathematics. You're afraid you're going to look like an idiot. So those are the kind of fears that are associated in this experience. And the motivations are you don't want to feel that way. You don't want to fail your principal and do a bad job. You don't want to let parents down. Pressure of parent expectations came up quite a few times in the interviews. As one of these related things, you saw there was quite a few in independent schools. They would talk about that. I'm in a private school. Parents are paying for this, so I have to make sure I'm doing a good job. And so they, and then the reduction, it's reducing uncertainty is it's the essence of this
Right.
experience. So they do that by, um, you know, learning the content, learning teaching techniques, sometimes just through, um, you know, having more structure, having
Yeah.
written materials. Scripted
Yeah.
lessons could do this. Having good software gives them good diagnostic information, so
Yeah.
they, um, you know, yes, they're just reducing the amount of unknowns in the situation, which
Yes.
is key to anxiety, is the sense of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Um, and if they do this, then they feel more confident,
Yeah.
um, less stressed, and they're able
Mm.
to answer tricky questions from their
Yeah.
kids.
Okay.
So that's the first one. And the second one is, as an exchange of knowledge. So this is really about interaction
Right.
now. So this is where they, overcome their anxiety through collaboration,
Okay.
in a couple of ways, through collaborating with their peers, so working as a team group, so where they have really
Hmm.
good, leadership and really good, culture of
Yeah.
collaboration. This can happen, and yeah, they're working together
Yeah.
with their partners to serve the students. And the other variation of this category is, as like an apprenticeship journey. So they had some very
Okay.
powerful mentor,
Yeah.
um, where they learned, you know, they watched them.
Yeah.
Some of them, they watched them and copied them. Like one of my participants, um, she was so anxious. She told me that, um, she had, she was lucky that early on she had a teacher, teaching in the same year as her,
Mm.
who was very confident, very
Yeah.
competent. She would go in and he would teach before her in the week. So she
Yeah.
would go in and watch his, maths lesson, and she would write down every example that he said, every explanation, and she would copy it. And she would go in. And she said she did that for 7 years before she started writing her own questions and making her own
Wow.
examples. Yeah, that's how anxious she was now. And now she's leading like the Maths Talent Quest group,
Yeah.
and
But
leading extension groups. She got past that, but like such dedication. Yeah, incredible.
and
Um,
isn't that testament to the fact that sometimes we get caught in the trap that doing a day's professional learning on, say, a new maths program, whatever it is enough to change practice
yeah.
because it's got evidence based and it's data informed and you get that. But actually, and I think I would have spoken to you about this before, especially when I was working with a colleague of ours before, it was an element of trust that I had in his judgment of my work and his faith in
Yes.
me to know that I could be good at that, that helped me. But if someone else had come in and said, you're going to be observed today, and I'm a math specialist and I'm going to observe your year 6 class, I don't think I would even been able to even get into the classroom to have even done
So
that.
it's so right, and that is reflected in my participants.
Right.
That it's right in this category that you're talking about. That they talk about that. Oh, my principal believed in me, so,
Right.
um, they had faith in me, so gave me
Yeah.
some faith in myself. This is, this kind of in this category in the last one,
Yeah.
but
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So in that mentor, the apprenticeship journey is
Mm.
like they copy, they watch, then
Yeah.
they do some, and they get feedback from their mentor generally, and then they're able to transition into being able to do it on their own,
Yeah.
over time. Um, so, one of the, you know, uh, if we go up to the top, there's the kind of
Mm.
sources that get addressed here with this
Mm.
experience. They would talk about, maths can be quite a, if you're not good at maths, it can be quite a lonely experience, isolating
Yeah.
experience. If you,
Hmm.
they talk about the experience sitting in a classroom and seeing everybody getting it, and they are not getting it, and they don't have the chance to ask questions. So this type of experience where they start to work with others around
Yeah.
mathematics transforms that and counters that
Yeah.
isolated, experience. they had. And also, um, you know, it's related to the first category. They talk about, you know, like the fear of looking like an idiot. So you try to hide what you're doing,
Yes.
like, you know, and you like make a really tight script and don't go off.
Yeah.
And yeah, like don't ask me any question that's not on my plan because then you'll
Yeah.
expose what I don't know. Um,
Yes.
but this type of experience here in this second category, where it's a collaborative experience, reduces that, starts to remove that fear
Yeah.
because they are sharing their um,
Yeah.
own inadequacy or their own lack of knowledge. Also, their you know their principals are also saying, yeah, you know, these are things I don't understand. That would be an
Yeah.
important part of this experience as well that they talked about, where their leaders being vulnerable with them as
Yes.
well.
And this,
And then
and I
well,
just sort of just think in my head when you're, from like a personal perspective, when you think of certain areas of your anxiety where that's probably something that maybe a previous education system or your own education journey has fueled that a bit. So it might have been the mental maths test that you had to do on a Friday that got you worked up because
mm,
it was to time. And suddenly you'd be asked to produce an answer. And I think that's probably a bigger part of maybe what we're doing in education. We're not giving things the luxury of time. And maths is one
yeah,
of those because it's an immediate right, wrong, move on, as opposed to going,
yeah,
okay, take your time, take a breath.
yeah. And with the pressure of throughout a curriculum and
Yeah.
many extra demands, then yeah, time gets less and
Yes,
less of an
definitely.
available resource. Um, so and then in the next couple of categories, very interesting what happens. So the third one, embracing uncertainty.
Mm,
Um, uh, so this is where there's a couple of different ways that they have this experience that they talked about. Um, so one is where they are just not um, they're like, I don't know how to do that. Like a student asks them a question, and they're like, actually, I don't know that either. And they're okay. They talk about this like this being, you know,
mm,
being vulnerable with their students. It's okay not to know, sharing that with their students. Um, so yeah, they talk about that where they're like, oh, let's figure it out together. Um,
interesting.
and but interestingly, this this won't be something that they do in the beginning. Um,
Yeah.
this is not a starting point for their, you know, so they all most of them experience, you know, expressed stories, examples
Mm,
that related to each of the categories, or at least several of them.
yeah.
Um, but they didn't start here. They didn't go into
Right.
the room and go, yeah, I can let go of control, because this
Uh,
part, this way of reducing anxiety is about letting go of the control.
yeah.
Because when you're anxious, you have this, you're overwhelmed by uncertainty and you try to lock on and get
Mm,
control of things. And in the first category, you get some control by reducing uncertainty, and that makes you less anxious.
yeah.
In this one, you get less anxious by stop trying to control.
Yes.
And they, but they can do this. They can do that thing where they go, oh, actually, I don't know the answer to that. Let's figure it out. They're able to
Mm,
do that once they've gained some control first. You know, when they know
yeah.
they're able to answer questions a lot of the time, then they're okay not answering them some of the time.
Yes.
You're not knowing the answer some of the time. Um, yeah, so that's one of the ways that they experience this. And another way
Mm,
is that they yeah, so some of them express this idea that, well, I can't. What did she say? One of my participants, something like she said, um, you know, I can't just like lock myself in a cupboard crying 5 days a week before I have to go into my math lessons.
yeah.
Um, so I've got to sort this out. And that was like the
Right.
embracing. It's like I'm going to, you know, whereas in category one where you're trying to reduce the uncertainty
Mm,
and make yourself more comfortable, this embraces the discomfort as well. That's another distinguishing factor of this type of experience when they're
mm,
experiencing that. They're willing to be uncomfortable, which is what you got to
yeah.
do when willing to not know the answer, but also this other variation where they're like, oh,
Yeah.
the only way out is through. I just have to get uncomfortable and face my anxiety in order to
Mm.
solve this. And
Yeah. And that's a
um,
huge mindset thing, because sometimes you might just go, it's an easy option to say, you know what, 80% of the kids have got it. That's good enough. 20%, oh, I haven't got, that's fine. I don't need to know how they're going to work it out. I'll just move on to the next topic. But for someone to go into that space and say, I've got to learn more to help everyone and overcome my kind of that, I think it's really
yes,
important to push that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah. And then so here, that would be sometimes where they start to be able to um, engage with mathematics in a different way as well.
Mm.
Play with it more, be more like investigate with their students,
Yeah.
explore, those kind of things happen here.
Yeah.
And then the final category, the most expansive, most powerful one, is as a transformation of belief. So this is where
Yeah.
they really change their concept. So they start with it's rooted in the source of this anxiety
Hmm.
is rooted in concepts about what it is to be a mathematician, what
Yeah.
mathematics is, what what it is to be a mathematics teacher, what I am
Hmm.
as, what kind of a teacher I am, what kind of a mathematician I am. So the negative self-concepts like I'm not a maths person, or fixed
Yeah.
views about mathematics teaching, like a mathematics teaching has to be like ordered and quiet and neat and controlled
Yes.
and um,
Not fun, surely not, Shyam. No fun there.
not messy. And that something happens that like someone tells them something,
Yeah.
or through often, this is often it comes later. Um,
Mm.
they experience something that shows them, oh, it can be a different way. They experience mathematics in a different way. They change the concept about that, or they try something out in teaching, or someone
Yeah.
tells them there's a different way to teach, and they
Yes.
go, okay, and they try it out, and they're like, wow. And what's really beautiful about this category when they change their view about what it is to be a mathematician and what it is to be a mathematics teacher, or whether I'm
Mm.
capable, um, is that's the point at which they tend to start thinking about others. They're thinking about the students before that, but
Yeah.
often when they prescribe to this experience or this type of way of experiencing,
Yeah.
shortly after they would be talking about, oh yeah, I really want my friend to do this project or learn about this, or this is why I'm so passionate about this and wanted to come on this project because I
Yeah.
really want to help teachers overcome their anxiety. So that's where, because with that expansiveness comes this ability to think more about um, their
Yeah.
colleagues, other teachers who are experiencing.
And I think taking a subject such as maths, which is so quantitative in nature, and we get caught in that cycle of deeming our success based on the quantitative results that we get in front of us. You must be a good maths teacher because 95% of your kids score this, as opposed to that inward thing of going, oh, but I'm a good teacher of this is a qualitative, kind of reflection of myself rather than
Yeah,
in my head thinking, oh, if I get to this percentage or this number or whatever, that means success. Yeah. So it's really
yeah.
messing with the concepts there in your head.
Um, shall I show you some of the quotes?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
So this is the first category. We're talking about reducing uncertainty. And there was one fractions lesson that we did where I can actually still remember the exact task. There were fraction bars, and it was just exploring different representations of the whole. And just the way that she gave us the problem and said, figure it out. Like that's what she'd do. She'd give us a problem. And that's where I think it was really helpful because she was able to identify our misconceptions as an adult and teach through that. So
Wow.
this one of the this experience often happened largely in pre-service training in
Okay.
university. Lots of my participants talked about um, you know, being shown how to teach mathematics in a different way, being shown mathematics in a different way so that they understood it now conceptually or in a connected
Yeah.
way, and allowed them to be more flexible and with solving problems and then answer more different types of questions and teach more effectively. So that that was part of the reducing their uncertainty. Another example. Yeah. I think resources is just, if you turn up, you're going to teach maths for an hour and you don't have anything there. You've got to control the class. Having resources gives them something to do. So it gives you some
Right.
confidence that something's happening in the first go. Also, you can mark it and then you can see whether the kids have improved or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, part of the reducing, there's lots of levels or kind of things within this reducing uncertainty. It's like just having something to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
makes you less anxious. But then, um, you know, the, Kevin, who's the quote
Yeah.
here, he was a little bit different because he didn't have anybody teaching in his year level. So he
Yeah.
didn't get to have a lot of that experience of like collaborative teaching and learn through that. He really had to build it himself.
Self. Yeah.
Um, and he did that through data, through
Yes. And that was something I was going
through
to ask you.
getting good, getting really good data and seeing whether things improve and go, okay, I know that I'm doing a good job because
Yeah.
their results are getting better. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the good thing about having in-service teachers who probably have a level of confidence in their ability as teachers. So they've got a benchmark of their own that they know they can reflect upon and using data. But interesting, that first one you're talking about with Billy, that kind of conversation, just a question from me, I suppose, is was she working with a facilitator as a maths facilitator, or was this another co-teacher? So same year group
In
teacher.
that, in that quote, who she's talking
Yeah.
about, she's
Yeah.
talking about a university lecturer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose the key then is to harness that and have that multiplier effect of making sure you've got them throughout all schools. So you have that
Yeah.
co-teaching model for sustainability, obviously options. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a big thing. At the end of my interviews, I would always ask them, what advice would you give for other teachers who want to overcome their
Okay.
anxiety? And one of the biggest pieces of advice was find a mentor.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
um, yeah. So this one in this exchange of knowledge. So just their leaders' ability to be really humble and acknowledge their own weaknesses, and yeah, just not feeling like you're being judged, I guess, for the way you're teaching or what you're teaching. I think that's made a huge difference. Just knowing that you're valued as a teacher, we're on the same page about how we're teaching and what we're teaching. So he's just
Yeah.
talking about that, communicating that
Yeah.
collaborative experience, that supportive experience. She had a really beautiful leadership structure within her school, really. And um, she
That could be.
talked elsewhere like the supportiveness, but it wasn't like, I'll just do whatever you want. Like they have a school approach and the people were coming and observing, but I'm not being judged, but helping sure we're all doing the same
Yeah.
thing. So there's like an accountability there too.
Mm.
And yeah, her principal would say it's not what was the quote that she took from her principal? I think it was, it's not best practice, it's next practice.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, so
That is.
they had a culture of continual improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was really powerful for her, overcoming her anxiety around teaching maths.
Yeah.
This one's a short quote, but I want to tell you a little bit about the story. This one's so powerful. And so
Yeah.
from doing it myself, I had a firmer understanding of how, I suppose, I continued to build my confidence in the shadow of my mentor, if I can use that expression. I was
Mm.
building on what he had done previously.
Right.
Now, Kyla
Mhm.
had a horrible experience of mathematics
Okay.
in school.
Yeah.
Just didn't get it, frustrated, bored, left behind, or
Mm.
was taught in a fairly dispassionate way through handed out worksheets. So he had decided before he went into his degree that he was going to teach mathematics because he hated it so much. It's like, well, I can
Mhm.
just do that. Just hand out worksheets. Then it's like hands off. I don't have to be
Yeah.
involved with that, and other people did that, so it's fine. So that was his plan. So he was going to avoid his
Mm.
discomfort with teaching mathematics. And then he got paired up with a, a mentor teacher for his Pratt, who was deeply involved in researching inquiry in mathematics and
Okay.
yeah, like a really passionate mathematics educator. And he was like, well, currently just hand out worksheets.
Wow.
Um, but his mentor, Richard, these are all obviously
Yeah.
pseudonyms.
Yeah.
Richard, I refer to him. He's yeah, he would teach. He said, "Oh, I can see that." He identified Kyla's anxiety, so
Mm.
he said, "I'll teach the math lessons and you watch." And then he would
Right.
stay behind after school for like, I don't know, an hour or something, and go through the mathematics and explain how fractions worked or explain
Wow.
this stuff. And then, um, and it was they were using like a launch, explore, summarize model, taught him a whole bunch of pedagogical techniques. Yeah, and then Kyla, like, he went away for a term, so Kyla had to take over the planning. So that was kind of like a little bit in between, and then Richard moved. They were teaching together when
Yeah.
he came out of school. Then they were teaching together, and then he left, and so then Kyla had to do all the planning himself. So that was a kind of transition into
Mm.
through the apprenticeship journey. But he still has a strong relationship with that mentor. But what's so powerful about this to me with the mentor thing is
Yeah.
it seems very plausible that if Kyla had never met Richard, he'd just be
Yeah.
handing out worksheets right now,
Yeah.
having a horrible time.
And in fact, yeah, and I think when I was hearing that part there, I'm putting an administrator hat on and going, it's very easy as a principal to say, oh, you're confident to do the maths, so you do all the planning of the maths, you do all the English. And actually,
Yeah,
and I remember my own teaching prac, I remember we had 2 year 2 classes, and they were massive in the UK, and you taught the maths lesson to the top group, and then as soon as it came in from recess, you taught the bottom group, and you taught the same math lesson, and the other person taught the English lesson. So you're only ever teaching in one curriculum area, which was terrible for a pre-service teacher.
mm,
But that is an easy solution in a lot of ways to go, well, you're great at maths, you do it. And to actually,
yeah,
for a principal to invest, even the principal from that point, to invest time to let someone become better is
yeah,
actually really, really powerful and speaks to, I think, administrative teams where they need to invest in their staff as well.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Which they need more resourcing to release
Yes.
people and so
Yeah.
forth. So okay, so this one, Hope, is talking
Yeah.
about the idea of like you've got to go through it,
Yeah.
um, for the embracing uncertainty one. I guess that
Mhm.
change was I can't spend 5 days of my life fearing mathematics and trying to teach my class maths that I don't understand. So I need to get good at it, I guess. Yeah, I got sick of being uncomfortable with it and just chose to embrace it and work it out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so embrace the discomfort. This is Billy. I think because half of getting rid of the anxiety is just knowing that you don't know it and accepting that. Because you're not mentally trying to hold on to, oh no, I don't need to know it. I need to know everything. Everything needs to be right. Um, and Jessica, I think the best thing that's been really freeing is being able to admit sometimes, I don't know. I had a grade 3 kid whose pre-test on fractions showed he was getting up to multiplying fractions, and he goes to me, Mrs. Sutton, how do you multiply fractions? I was like, Jake, actually don't know, but I will find out. Let's work it through it together.
Yeah. And did you find that in some of those cases, although they said, I don't know, is it a case of their retrieval of having been taught that concept themselves? Is they probably do know it and they're familiar with it, but it
Mm,
hasn't been embedded well enough for it to stick, or there's a really anxious, an anxiety related to how that was taught then. Did
yeah,
some of it come back?
it's a good point. I don't think I asked them into that.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if I can comment
Mm.
on that. Seems likely
Yeah.
that's that's possible. I mean, they definitely they learnt a lot
Yeah.
in through professional learning and training and got that knowledge.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it wouldn't take them that long to learn things that they didn't know generally.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this one in the transformations of beliefs. So this was Jessica. So Jessica was the one that I told you about that copied for 7 years.
Yes.
Um,
Mm.
so she's talking about her teacher that she
Yeah.
copied here. He was the first one in a
Mhm.
friend conversation, a laptop school conversation. He was the first one that said, "I think you have mass anxiety." And I was like, you're just making that up. And he goes, no, it's a real thing, because he had done some study into it, and he was like, you've got to realize you're not as bad as you think you are. No one is as bad as you think you are. Give yourself some credit. Your kids' results are not worse than mine. Your parents are not complaining about you. There's no evidence that you are as bad as you think. You're just doing this in your head. And that was really important.
Wow.
Um, that shows one of the ways that happens, that transformation of beliefs happens. So there's a few kind of things that, it can be like he's presenting her with evidence that is contrary to her belief. So she holds this belief that I'm not a good mathematician. She holds that because she had awful experiences as a child.
Yeah.
She was in the gifted program. She's incredibly good at English. But so then she was judged for not being even though she was kind of like average at mathematics, they were telling her like not to go to take any maths in upper school because you'll bring the school average down. Like, one of her teachers literally told her parents to make sure she didn't enroll in mathematics to not bring the school average down.
Wow.
And so she held these really deep beliefs, and also gendered beliefs she talked about as well, like because her dad was the mathematician and her mum was the teacher librarian, and so she felt like as a woman she and the mentor that she copied was a man as well. She said a funny comment at one point where she was like, when she got to a year group, and she it was just her and one other female teacher who was also anxious about mathematics, and that's where she had to go into this final phase of the mentor journey and start doing it on her own. And she was like, there wasn't a man to teach maths anymore.
No.
To do it.
And it's I'm talking from my own gender perspective, but I would say that I'd find that really hard, that I would struggle even if a male came in who said, oh, I've got a bit of math. I'd probably actually have to get over my fear that male didn't know more maths than he was, for me to teach them. Like, even though they'd probably be similar, or I've got, as I have gotten lots of maths experience and teaching, and someone said that to me, I'd have to really get my head into the zone of going, okay, I'm teaching a male individual. But I wouldn't have a problem with teaching male children, but it's quite a thing when we have this perception as we get older, don't we, as well? Men do the mathematicals and the sciences, and we've still got a lot of barriers to break down, I think.
Yeah, so they also transform their beliefs by reflecting on their experience after they've had some successful experience. Then there are other things that they talked about where they're like, oh, I'm doing, they reflect, I'm doing okay, and their belief in who they are and what they are as a teacher starts to change. Okay, save the best for last. And then Debbie said to me, so Debbie here is like a curriculum leader in the school. And then Debbie said to me, maths is more closely aligned to creative art subject than it is to English. And when she said that, I went, oh, I get it. Because I put it into a space that I was so comfortable and that I just understood so well. I took the thinking that I originally had, that I had to be quiet and individual, and if it got too loud and messy, then this wasn't good teaching. And I put it for me in a drama space, but also an art space. And I went, well, if I look at a drama class, it's loud and it's messy and there are shoes off and we're exploring stuff. And if stuff isn't right, we just try it a different way. And it doesn't mean that what we've just tried is wrong. It just means let's try a different thing. And so it was permission for me to be myself in my teaching. And so I often move the tables away. I say to the kids, move the tables away, take your shoes off. And they know when I say take your shoes off, it's maths time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'm actually getting a little teary. When she told me this, I had tears in my eyes a lot of through the interview. Because she also talks about, particularly this line, and so it was permission for me to be myself in teaching.
Yeah.
So that was such a big part of the anxiety, was that she had this concept of what it means to be a mathematics teacher. And that was so different from who she was. Because she was drama trained. She first did drama teaching for high school and then transitioned into primary. And I had this concept that this is how maths goes, and there's no space for that. There's no space for me here. And then this comment that this curriculum leader made to her inspired her to think about it before and then try something new. And she did this lesson where she like jumped up on the counter with a tub full of 600,
Mm.
or jumped up onto the desk with 600 about 600 counters in a thing and just tipped them and made them
Yeah.
scatter all over the floor. They were doing odds and evens, and then
Yeah.
they got 10 frames, and she's like, let's figure out how it is. And then she just had a completely different experience of mathematics in that moment. It just transformed what mathematics could be, what
Yeah.
it meant to be a mathematician. And now she was in the room. Like,
Yeah.
Hope, the way that she was being theatrical had a place.
Yeah. And that, for me, that's the combined experience of the teacher with the students. We've both experienced something today.
Yeah,
Rather than being I've delivered the content to you, but actually we've had an experience that we can both hook onto in down the
yeah,
line,
deeply
and it's really
transformative
powerful. Yeah,
experience. So,
hugely. Yeah,
yeah, and
definitely.
yeah, and she would talk. Yeah, I can't remember what point. The gestures she would make when she talked about this. She was just like, oh, it's heart expanding. Yeah, it was
Oh, that's
powerful
incredible.
stuff. Yeah. So that's a little snapshot. There are loads more
Mm,
quotes. Um,
yeah.
but some of the kind of implications from here, some of the important things outside of what's there, is that they generally begin at category 1 or 2. So they begin with reducing their uncertainty through gaining some knowledge or through working with someone else, or a combination of those two. They don't begin by telling themselves that they're not a bad mathematician, or
Yeah.
that maths can be this way. Some of them had an idea of, like growth mindset
Yeah.
from Carol Dweck or Joe
Good work.
Bowler
Yeah.
or something. They had that, and they kind of had that coming in, but it didn't really happen. Transformation didn't happen
Mm,
until there was some experience. You know, they
yeah.
needed
Feel.
evidence.
Yeah.
You need evidence that maths can be a different way before you can
Yeah.
really believe it. They needed evidence that they're not bad at maths by being good at it before they could
Yeah.
change that belief. And they need some confidence. And you also can't throw them in the room and tell them, well, don't worry, like
No.
it's
Yeah.
okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
They need to know some things first before they can get to that point.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was one of the big things. Is this more expansive categories tend to come later.
Mm,
Um, I'll put this point in about, because we've got there's a lot of a push towards using scripted lessons, which I'm not against. I think it can
no.
provide a lot of power to teachers. But in
And a
terms of
reference
this,
point. Yeah. Mm.
yeah, reference points. In
Mhm.
terms of this, it can't be the end point. Like, it will, in terms of addressing their anxiety, it will
Exactly.
only address category 1.
Yeah.
They won't get to experience as an exchange with others unless
Yeah.
they plan some things themselves. And they
Yeah.
won't get to embracing uncertainty unless they are willing to take some moments that are off script.
Yeah.
And they won't transform who they are unless it's something that they do themselves rather than
Mm.
just following a plan. Um, and yeah, categories 2 to 4, exchange of knowledge, the embracing uncertainty, the transformation of beliefs, are really powerfully supported by leadership and
Yeah.
good mentors. That all
Yeah.
have to be.
Mm.
All have to have quality learning. The learning that they gain. Like in that second category, like in the first one, they can reduce some. We talked about, like, you can get some reduction in anxiety just by knowing something
Mm.
to do.
Yeah.
But in the second one, it comes more like, well, knowing the right thing to do because I'm learning from someone who is qualified, who's expert.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more powerful, the confidence that comes from knowing the right thing to do or knowing multiple effective ways of doing rather than just knowing something to do.
Yeah. And I think when I've just been seeing the last few, I suppose, few slides you've been going through, whilst I think it's amazing that those participants have been on that massive journey, and you're wonderful that they've done that. For me, some of the loudest voices are those that have been the ones who've got them to that journey. you know, the
Yeah,
ones who have been there and gone, actually, your voice is the ones that have changed it because you have given them what they needed to get to that point, which probably sums up some of the most wonderful parts of our profession, um, and finding
that's
those
some,
lights through
yeah,
it.
that's something that I'll be able to address more in the second part of my analysis and the narrative analysis. It just doesn't
Yeah.
fit the phenomenography much, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to do narrative analysis as well, so I can give more
Yeah.
emphasis to the power of those
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. And yeah, well, we'll just have to have you back then, Shyam, for the next part to
Round
be
two.
continued. Thank you so much for that. That's amazing. And if, say, anyone wants to reach out to you, they can do that through Notre Dame. Is that right? Is that probably the best way to do
Yeah, you
it?
can find me on my. You can.
Yeah, I can pop that
I've
on.
got a staff website,
Yep.
webpage at Notre Dame. It's shyam.drury at nd.edu.au. But if you
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I
Google
think
me
there'd
or
be a
look
lot
for
of
me on
people.
the website, you'll find my contact details there.
And wonderful. And some of those programs you've been doing previously as well, like the Lighthouse Maths, that's still, and you've obviously set that up well. Those sort of things are
Still
going.
running
So
through
that's a good
Scitech. Yep.
model. Yeah, people might want to touch base with. That'd be awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Shyam, so much for the conversation this morning. And we look forward to having you back for part 2. So we're all very excited.